Alrighty, what is good? It is May 6th. I have not done one of these in a couple days. I've been super busy. Officially, finally wrapped up my last final today. So I'm basically a free man and now get to be on my own time schedule and not have to deal with other people. But like I said, I asked my Discord if they wanted a recap going over like the scalps I liked in that big R trade that I had posted on Twitter where I did that like little walkthrough. I still want to cover that and kind of give a idea because the video I did post, it was in a 9x16 format, not the wide range, so you couldn't see my 12 my 12 and 72 minute chart. So I'm just going to do a walkthrough of everything today, just kind of unfold what I thought about price action today and the setups I would have engaged in if I was on the charts and throughout the whole day, basically, right? So initially going into the day, right, I wanted to remain bearish, but that wasn't confirmed for two reasons, right? Now, obviously, you can see on the 12-minute and the 72-minute, we were just displacing down completely, right? And if we look over at the left side of our chart, obviously, I have quite a few drawings over there. I don't want to delete them because you won't be able to see some of these current things. Actually, no, I can delete them real quick. 1 second. All right, we got that drawn back. So we had a bunch of volume over here. We had the zone over here, and we know price is attracted to volume, right? And you can see that is where price stalled out, right? Initially, I wanted to be bearish because we had this big 72-minute imbalance and all of these 12-minute imbalances. Now, the main key factor here is this whole move down. There wasn't really much consolidation. And usually what we know and what I've talked about is that usually when there's no consolidation in bigger impulse moves, we know that the likelihood of a retracement reversal like a V shape is possibly looming and could very well happen. So to confirm my bearish bias initially, what I wanted to see was on the 12 minutes, us not close above this high right here. Now, in real time, what did happen, if we zoom in a little bit, you can see it closed right up there. So I remained semi-neutral there. I was able to adapt really quick and take some bullish setups, and I'll go over all of those. But that was basically the main framework in terms of what I was wanting to anticipate going into today. Obviously, I didn't jump the gun and immediately just marry a bias because I know that you must be adaptable in these markets. And when different circumstances present, you need to be able to adjust and trade accordingly in direction of that, right? So the first setup I want to cover is this quick scalp right up here. We did have this, and now basically the way I scalp is they're 1 minute sweeps, and basically you either buy stops or sell stops, or if you really want to, you can bump down to the 10 second, get a 10-second CSS entry off them. But realistically with scalping, I want to keep it as simple as possible. Less moving parts, less time frames, because they're base 1-to-1s. There's really no need to get down on the second charts for those. Now it's cool to do it because you're executing on the second charts, but in reality, you got to think longevity wise, and scalping, in my opinion, something I'm going to be doing for the rest of my trading career. And I want to be able to have it as easy on the mind as possible. So that is why I stick particularly to the 1 minute forum, right? So there was two kind of setups here. Now, this was when I was iffy about bias. Like I said, I was a little neutral about where I wanted to be, if I wanted to be bullish or bearish. Now, obviously, hindsight, you could be like, well, this whole move up, that should have determined your bias. No, the high time frame was telling me that this could possibly be something here because we started to fail to close above this and we got a really weak closure. So I was like, okay, that could maybe give us a retracement back into here, right? So initially, you'll see right off the bat, we did have this sweep of this high. Now, the reason this is not a good setup is because you're trying to pick a top. If I'm being honest, if you try and pick tops and bottoms, just kiss yourself goodbye. If you don't have quite a bit of market experience, even people with a lot of market experience are not going to have a great consistency doing so. It's best to let structure form in front of you. And that's why I like this setup so much. But essentially right up there, because I know some people are going to have questions about that, is why is that not a valid setup? It's because you're trying to pick a top, right? So we let a little bit more structure form, right? You see, we did have a market structure shift. Now, this is not a valid flip because we never closed below a quote unquote protected low because this low never closed above that. So this wasn't deemed protected. But we did get a really nice sweep over here. We had this sweep. We had a little bit of displacement down to where I thought we were going to retrace back into the range right over here. And clearly we did not. We came up, we took that high, closed back within the range. And with these specific scalps, like I was saying, what you do or what you do is you'll set, I always mix them up. I think it's like okay, now I can't because it's after hours, but I think it's a sell, yeah, a sell stop under. I can't remember off the top of my head because I recently started doing them because they're honestly extremely easy to execute, especially being used to the super low time frame charts. But that was the first setup. Like I said, I let a little bit more structure form in front of me. I did not want to immediately try and pick this top. It's just not necessary, even though that would have been a winner. More times than not, that's not going to be. And like I said, that was when I was more intermediate in terms of bias. Now, if I'd automatically deemed a bullish bias, I would have. If we had a stronger close above this, but we did not, I would have been engaged in this setup right here because you can see we had this little zone ski over here. This is going to be a lower time frame zone. Let me put it at the 50%. Lower time frame zone over here. We come down, tap it, induce that, and then we get a really nice move back up. You can see you would have had a, I'm going to mix them up this whole video, but I believe a buy stop. And you would have been tagged in right there, obviously, going for quick one-to-ones. So you would have been, let me get the one-to-one tool toggled on. You would have been entry there and out within basically 2 minutes. So that would have been the first quick scalp of the day. Had it have been easy to determine more so a bias right there. And then once it was confirmed after we started to get all this impulse move or continuation back up, we started, obviously, we closed above the 72-minute. We started completely disrespecting those bearish imbalances. We know what happens with that is we should start engaging in, obviously, setups in the direction that the market's moving. Follow the trend. The trend is your friend. Obviously, until it ends, but more times than not, you're going to be far more beneficial and far more successful trading with current market structure instead of trying to pick tops and bottoms, as I literally said probably a couple minutes ago. But specifically, this was the next setup that I really, really like, just focusing on current structure, not getting too caught up in the higher time frames, understanding that we are likely going to continue up. And the reason I say continue up, because if you zoom out a little bit right up here, you can see all of these stacked highs up right up here. And you know the likelihood of attracting to stacked highs is very, very, very high. The market always draws to them at some point, and especially when we're moving with speed, you know, based on the higher time frame, that's going to be a really good target. So you just continue going and grinding in that direction, right? So this specific setup right here, we come down, we sweep this low right up here. This is that one that I had posted on Twitter. You would have been tagged in right on this second candle break. And I'll usually say, I usually give it about 2 candles, right? I'll allow it inside bar to form, and then I'll let the next one be allotted to either tag me in. But usually after 2 is when I start to get iffy, unless it's a really, really quality setup, and that's going to come down to your intuition and the way you see it. But that's the specific theology right here. Now, it wasn't the first candle, which I know that's going to be another question some of y'all have, is how many candles do you allow? And for the majority, it's going to be just 2, right? So we get this sweep right here with structure. We get tagged on the second candle, and you can see this does accumulate a little bit right here. You'd have been in this trade 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes for another really quick 1-2-1. And obviously, we did come up to that liquidity point, but until we see a flip, we got to remain bullish. You know what I mean? So we come down, we take down this low right up here, this little swing low. And the beautiful thing about this is we have this really picture perfect fractal right here that you can see we tap into at the same time. And now let me zoom in a little bit, because this is a little bit of a wonky candle. You can see we actually did not put a body below that. We bodied it and still put a little baby wick below it. And then that next candle went down, tapped into that. And that would be where I am taking that buy stop off of for a quick 1-2-1 again. Let me get this tool out again. So you'd have been in that trade you'd have been tagged in on the first candle. I will say the best setups do happen on the first candle because it shows some impulsiveness and shows some willingness to move towards that intended direction, right? And so you would have been out 1-1 right there, and just understanding possible targets. If you're wanting to reach for a little bit more, is you could do this little swing right here. We get the 50% out, and that would have given you probably about a 1-5, it looks like. That would have given you, yeah, let's actually check real quick. 11.25 from that, and it would have been 6.75. So almost a 1-2 there, just depending on your target. And I will say, you can go for more than 1-1, but if you're wanting to keep it as simple and as just rule based and ease of mind as possible. Just stick with the 101s. But if you're really good at gauging where you should and shouldn't pull off, more than all, go for more targets, because this is a direct one right here. If you understood this liquidity point or this high was resting up in here, you could have taken this entry right here, like we just discussed a minute ago. And instead of going for a 1-to-1, you could have came up and got it out here at a 2.29 risk reward right there. So there was that set up on those and the possible target you could have targeted there. Now we did kind of just chop around nasty for a little bit. Nothing here that really piqued my interest. Obviously, you can see we do have this sweep right here. This would have been decent. This would have been really tough to get an entry on. I remember actually seeing this when I was on call with ARK. Usually these are going to be the really tough ones to get a entry off of directly because the way this candle closes. Now this would have been another winner, but it's really questionable on if you would have got an entry if you were fast enough, because this bodied and immediately jumped past where your entry would be. Now you could have placed a limit right after if you missed it, and you would have been able to get tagged into that. But that would be valid in terms of a short, because you can see we've had this flip over here. We broke close below that low, higher time frame flip, and we're going to want to trade in that direction. We aren't going to want to counter trend, because the more times you counter trend, you're just shooting yourself in the foot. And we get another sweep right here, but this one never would tag entry until like probably 15 candles or 10 candles after. And then this is the next really, really quality setup. You can see we get a continuation break right there, realistically over at this low. Let me mark it over there. Continuation break there, right? We come up, we get a first tap, close back out, come to the bottom of that zone, and then we get a move back up higher and take out to this point, or this high right up here. That's resting basically right below this 1 minute CSS candle, which is really nice. Something I will say that I particularly look out for is usually when there are layered basically confluences, right? If you have a high right there, it wicks it, and you have a CSS, or you have like a fractal, for example. Like if we go back to this setup, where was it? Right, wait, where'd it go? Am I blind? Oh, I think it was, oh my gosh, where was it? What? Oh, right here, duh. Oh my gosh, sorry, my brain's kind of all over the place right now. But like layered confluences, right? We have a fractal here, we have a low that we take, like those are going to be the best setups and the highest probable, in my personal opinion. And those are ones you should really want to particularly engage with, because you know with high certainty that they're going to work out in your favor, rather than just taking anything and everything wherever it is, right? And then we get obviously a really nice 1-to-1 out of that. And if you understand just basic principles, you could obviously reach for more, because that gives you a 1-to-1 almost instantly. And realistically, you could target down to these lows. We got resting equal lows, and we know price, when it makes equal lows, it's going to trade away from them, take out the high that put them in right up here, and come back and attack those lows as such. And that would have been a really nice RR just based on that. And then we get this next one right here. We have this liquidity point right here. Let me drag this over really quick just so it doesn't confuse y'all. Right here, we have yet another, like I said just a minute ago, a little fractal resting right up in there that price taps into. So when you have those layered confluences, those are going to be really key in your understanding and development in terms of what your A+ setup is. Now, there's going to be certain confluences that stick out more to you than they do to me. And it's all about being adaptable and understanding what works well with your brain, right? And that's the main point here, is just being able to view it from the way you do, what you like, what speaks out to you, and just combine them and wait for those really good quality A+ setups to form, right? You don't want to just, like I said a minute ago, you don't want to just be taking anything and everything. You want to be a sniper. Now, people say scalping, you're basically a machine gun, but you can definitely be a sniper in scalping if you are waiting for specific things that jump out to you and that you want to engage in and trade with, right? So there's that setup. That's another 1-to-1 plus delivered. And then let me redraw this back over here. I can just leave that there, so that shouldn't be distracting. We have this swing high. We basically get a double tap of this fractal. We actually do come up to this imbalance right here, and we have a fractal resting right above it. Oh, this is going to throw me off. There we go. 50%. Okay, we have the 50% of that, and then we have another fractal resting right above it that we come up and tap into, right? And we have this point, this high right here that we come up and sweep. Now we get another continuation breakdown here too. So those are going to be, again, like I said, the best setups, right? You just got to focus on those. And you can see we have this high that takes it. Then we get another one that pushes up into it. This would have never tapped you down here because you would have a sell stop down here and engage there. And once this second candle wicked up right here, you'd be placing your sell stop. I believe I'm probably mixing that up right there. And that would have tagged you on the second candle again. And you would just have your stop at that high targeting a brisk 121. Or you could even target these lows down here because, you know, there's a high likelihood that we're going to make a new low, right? And you can see price kind of just dabbles around for a little bit after taking this low. We are in a higher time frame, 72-minute imbalance over there that we almost reached a 72, or I was about to say 72%, the 50% of, right? You can see we start wicking out of there. Then we start to get a nice move back up. We get a market structure shift right here. So now we want to be focusing on bullish setups primarily and want to be trading with what price is doing now. And not looking too far left, because as Dave says, you only need the right side of your chart. You don't need to be looking at the left side of your chart, because that's where that analysis paralysis kicks in, right? You're going to be looking at stuff that happened days ago. But realistically, the main point is just focus on what price is doing now and trade with what price is doing now. There's no point in doing all this magic cool stuff like picking relative highs, relative bottoms, you know. The real money makers here have the simplest systems. They have the simplest ideologies, and they just come in and execute every single day with just pure precision, right? So you can see we just get continuations up. We have this little zone right here. Now, this isn't a super strong zone to me just because of the size of it. Obviously, the bigger zones are going to be more adept to more quality and higher quality trades. But still, a zone is a zone, right? And you can see we come around, right? We come down, we wick this low. This is not the cleanest setup. And I want to make a particular point. I would highly recommend most of y'all, especially if you are still like kind of easing into this scalping stuff, particularly like these kind of setups, right? It's just wait for the clean ones, the really, really clean ones, right? You can see, like, in my opinion, this one's really clean. This one is really clean. That fractal one right up here that we talked about a minute ago is really clean. That's really clean. Basically, where you just see one wick come down, snipe a low or a high, and immediately return back up and you get tagged in. These kind of trades right here are going to be a little bit more advanced and more a play on intuition and where price is and what the current structure is just kind of chilling in and where that point or that low is taken, right? So you can see all of these wicks right here. Now, you may say, well, there's a body closure below that low, so why would you be engaging with that? Here's the key thing. Price never closes below these wicks. You can see no body closure, no body closure, no body closure. They're all just wicks. And we all know the body tells a story, the wicks do the damage, right? And you can see the first entry you would have not got tapped in here. You would have not got tapped in here. You would have got tapped in here after that sweep right there, right? We come down, we there. Boom, tap, buy stop, sell stop. I'm going to keep mixing those up for a really quick 1-to-1 right there. You would have been in that trade for 2 minutes, or if you had a little bit more market intuition, you could be targeting up towards that high, which you could see was met, and that would have given you a 3R trade right there, so it's not too shabby. And then we do have this setup right after. And I wanted to discuss why this is not a good setup. In my opinion, you can see my annotation up here. Would be hesitant here as lows are weak, specifically because we failed to close above this high, right? And we know usually when there's a failure to close above high, the lows are weak and those are going to become an easy target, right? Now, this one still would have gave a 1-to-1, but it's not a quality setup. And I would say more times than not, this will burn you more than anything, in my opinion, because ultimately price is gravitating towards these lows, which is exactly what you could see, or what you see is exactly what happened, right? We've continued to failed swing, break, zone, boom, 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 come down and take out those lows, right? And that's basically just the main point right there is why this to me is not a quality setup, is particularly because we failed to close above that high. We purely wicked it and closed back within the range. And you may be saying, well, isn't that a scalp? No. Well, yes, but it's against structure, right? We don't want to be focusing on counter trend trades. Again, that's trying to pick a top. There's just really no reason in doing it. Just like I've said probably 10 times this video, just focus on what price is doing in the structure it's in now and engage with that there. So with that being said, we're going to hop into that 10-second execution that I was talking about, or that I had posted on Twitter. You can see this is a 1 minute low right over here. And primarily the key play here was some imbalances on the 12 minute, right? Let me delete this drawing because you can kind of see it, or it's kind of blocking the view. And let me delete this really quick. Of course, the market's open, so that's okay, good. New candle just printed, so it shouldn't jump over much anymore. You can see, what do we see right here? Market structure break to the upside, right? Temporarily, we know this could be a protected low. Okay, we get that break. We have a big imbalance here, right? We come down, we almost tap into it right here. Almost tap into it. But now this imbalance is fully wide open. I'll put a gray box on it so I can draw it over so y'all can see it. Right here. Look at this. 12-minute imbalance. We have this 1 minute low just resting right above it so perfectly. We come down, we liquidate that, and we get a beautiful 10-second CSS right here. You can see. Boom, shakalaka. We close above it right there on that second candle. We get a wick above it, break above it. So now you would be taking a entry off of here with your stop right here. That's a 2.5 point stop. Now I did something a little bit different here, right? And you probably saw it in the video, and I think I discussed it, was I actually took my entry a little bit after. I didn't place a limit there. I wanted to see price react and kind of get a gauge right here. And initially, we tapped back in and we started to wick back up. You can see this like long tail wick right here. We kind of just held this for a little bit. So that's where I went ahead and tagged my entry. And you can see this did run down a little bit. It tapped into this basically hidden S&D right down here. This 50% of this wick. And initially, or basically framed off of that and continued its run higher. And the target here, like I said, initially entry based upon an imbalance in a low resting right above an imbalance. Those are always going to be the highest quality setups, in my opinion. Those are always going to be the ones I'll want to execute day in and day out. The ones that just jump out to you. And actually, I want to make a point before I continue here, because I saw someone on Twitter comment on the execution video and said, "You make it look so easy." You know why it looks easy? Because I let these setups come to me. I don't go chasing these massive R setups. I don't. I let them speak to me and let them come to me. I don't force them, because if I woke up every morning and told myself, this is, which I'll say is possible, not for me though, is if I woke up every morning and told myself, I'm going to go get 10R today because I want to, right? That's instilling a bad mindset directly, because like you just can't think in terms of that, because that creates a sense of impulsiveness and urgency to engage in every single setup you want, right? You don't want to be doing that. You want to be able to have these setups jump out to you and to where you execute them without even thinking, because you've seen the specific thing happen time over time over time over time. And rather than forcing it, you let it speak to you and let it jump out to you, and you just execute it like just mindlessly, almost not mindlessly, because a lot of thought process goes into it. But that's the main principle behind that, right? I just want to make that known, because that's a really important factor, because I don't want to see people struggling with these big R trades. And I see some people absolutely killing it with what I've already shared on YouTube, which is awesome to see. But truly, you, in my honest opinion, you can't really come into the day just like being like, I'm going to get a 10R or a 15R setup today because I can, right? It's just not the right mindset, right? But in terms of target here, right? I talked about this in the video, and I'm going to re-explain it because it's really important factor. Is usually, this is why I always like to use the higher time frames, especially for POIs, right? I'll use them for targets. I'll use them for entry techniques and where I want to engage with price, right? And if we can see right up here, we have a 12-minute imbalance. I'm zoomed in a little too much right here. We have this 12-minute imbalance fully unmitigated, and I'll draw this out with the box so y'all can see it a little bit better. We have this 12-minute imbalance fully unmitigated. Price is not touched into it, right? And we know with high likelihood, price is going to want to gravitate towards that because it's completely wide open, right? And when we have resting, basically equal highs, you could call them relative equal highs, resting right below that, just like my entry. Keep that in mind. Where that trade was framed off was a low resting right above that imbalance, right? And for target, my target was basically highs resting right below an imbalance, right? We got basically all of this like trend line liquidity, right? All these trend line highs right up here, right? And we know price is going to be attracted to those. It's always going to be attracted to relative equal highs, whatever, right? So we know with high conviction that this is a really high likelihood target because of all these wicks up here. There's a lot of pending orders, a lot of stops, a lot of, basically the whole ordeal right there, resting up there. And we know with conviction that price is going to gravitate towards that area and ultimately want to tap into that imbalance. That's why I did not close at these highs, because I knew this imbalance with it being right above those was going to be a high likely target for these, right? And honestly, I think with that being said, I think that's everything I wanted to cover in regards to basically just today's price action. It was actually really, really clean, especially for scalpers. I will say the past 2 days have been rough, and it makes me mad because on my birthday I got the worst price action probably known to man, but it is what it is, right? And we must persist and continue to push forward and show up every day and execute our setup. So with that being said, I appreciate all of y'all, and I will catch y'all in the next video. If you have questions, as usual, just comment them down below or shoot me a tweet on Twitter or join up the Discord. I'll try and get that link in there again because I forgot to last time. I think it was invalid or whatever. But if you have any questions, just reach out to me on those platforms and I'll try to get you answered as quick as possible. And I will catch you on the next video. Peace.